Governor, thank you so much for having Walmart here today. The 3 years before I came to Walmart, I worked for Mike Huckabee, and I have huge respect for what you do. And I will tell you something just between us. I think wherever your life goes after you leave office, you will look back, and I say this to my kids all the time. The further removed I get from those years, the more I understand how important it was. I spent a lot of time in Washington for Walmart, and I'm biased because I'm a governor's guy. Everybody who ever worked for a governor refers to it as my guy, but Huckabee was my guy. And governors have to clear snow and fix roads. They have to make schools work. They have to balance a Medicaid budget. They have to go to the fried chicken dinner on a Saturday night when they're a little tired. But governors in this country are still the people who make things happen. It's a very different climate being back in a state capital today than it is in Washington. So I will just tell you, having worked for a governor who I respect a great deal, and I know respected you, thank you for having Walmart here today. We appreciate it.
And yes, we do have to clean snow off. That's what
you do.
I was even out driving it. Well, I wasn't driving the truck. They wouldn't let me do that. But I was driving it one saying, let's make sure we get the snow cleared.
And you never take any heat when that doesn't go well, do you? Not at all. I brought a few slides, and I just want to tell you sort of rather conversationally what's happening at Walmart and how we're looking at jobs and manufacturing right now and why we think this matters so much. I would start with the thought that what it's really going to take is the public and private sector working together to affect real change. And when I go to meetings like this, I'm reminded that it will take all of us to make a difference. Walmart, let's just start with Kansas. We're spending $2 billion with suppliers that we buy from in Kansas. We have 56 supercenters here, 12 neighborhood markets, 8 Sam's Club, a distribution center, and we have 20,000 associates in Kansas making on average $12.37 an hour. So we are, as we are most places, we are a large economic presence here. And I will say the intangible, when Sam Walton opened the company in 1962 and then started expanding out, Kansas is one of the first states where the company came. If you go to Rogers, Arkansas today, there is a little plumbing supply store in what was the actual building where Sam opened in 1962. And in Bentonville, that grew from our little hometown to one of the largest companies in the world. But when we talk about, and you made some fabulous points in your presentation, when we talk about entrepreneurship, I think there's a television commercial running now about what great American things came out of garages, Steve Jobs, Detroit, rock and roll bands. But when I drive by that little plumbing supply business, I think Sam Walton built this out of that. And I think we're at a point in American history now with some things that are happening in China and why jobs are coming back home that it's a very relevant time to have that conversation. I would also be remiss before I start if I didn't mention Crossland Construction, a huge partner of Walmart for many years now, and really a valuable ally in what we do, and we have great respect for your company. Crossland has built a ton of Walmarts and neighborhood markets, and they're building a really innovative prototype new gas station for us in Bentonville right now. So it's a great company that understands these issues very well. Let me just start with the premise that Walmart, we're looking to buy an additional $250 billion in U.S. products over the next 10 years. That will help us with everyday low price. It will allow us to better manage our inventory, quicker response time, and less volatility in the market. The simple reality of a supply chain is, for our customer, is the shorter the supply chain, the more rapidly and effectively we can adapt to what the consumer wants. And the longer it is, the harder it is to do that. Because in our business, you have to give the consumer, you have to bring it through design and production and manufacturing and get it into your store while it is still very much what the consumer wants. And the shorter supply chain is going to help us achieve that. I want to start by telling you about the Kent Bicycle Company of Parsippany, New Jersey. I actually think this little story says more about these issues than just about any other story I could tell you. But Kent Bicycles in New Jersey was importing bikes from China from 1958 to 1979. They had a very good business. In 1979, Kent decided to get into actually manufacturing bicycles in China in a partnership with a Chinese company. So they got in the ownership business over there. Now, overlaying this point in American history, from 1962 when Walmart opened to 1997, Walmart never sold a bicycle that had not been made in the United States. So for 35 years, every bike we sold was made here. By 1997, the price differential had reached 25%. So we were becoming non-competitive in bicycles because a bike made in China could be purchased for 25% less, and a bike made in the United States just simply wasn't moving on the marketplace, and Walmart had to do what everybody else did, and at that point we had to start selling bicycles that we were importing. By 1998, Huffy was the last U.S. bicycle company to give up domestic production. This, of course, excludes the very high-end $3,000, special bikes that are used by racing teams and racing individuals. I'm talking about the bikes you give your kid on birthday morning or Christmas morning. So Kent Bicycle remained in China, where today, and this number blows me away, they have 2 production facilities that sit side by side. They make 15,000 bicycles a day in China. So a year or two ago, Walmart said, what would it look like if we started talking about you bringing some production back into the United States? And we started a dialogue, and we are moving ahead with that. And now Kent is coming home to Clarendon County, South Carolina, and they will open a facility that we think by year 4 should have 200 trained workers. This is kind of a cool-looking bike. They're going to brand it as Bicycle Corporation of America, which is actually a brand in the United States from 30 years ago, BCA. They have some cool designs. But where I think this bike is kind of a microcosm of some of these manufacturing issues that we're talking about is when you build bikes, you build the frame. And then you go on the open market to buy the handlebar, to buy the tires, to buy the pedals, to buy that little, sort of bell that makes a noise on the handlebar. You buy all that separately, and you as the manufacturer make the frame. So they're coming home as a result of conversations with us. I think that's relevant because what is more a quintessential American product than the bike you give a kid on Christmas morning that's being ridden today on schoolyards across Topeka? So I think that's an interesting example of how we can shift the paradigm a little bit by dealing with our big suppliers. Just a snapshot of our company today. 2013 sales, $476 billion. We have 140 million customers a week coming through the front door. We promote 160,000 people a year. 75% of our employees started as hourly associates. And I mention this everywhere I go now. Doug McMillan took over as CEO of our company about 8 weeks ago. Doug is a guy who actually tells stories when he was a kid living in Bentonville as a teenager. He had a paper route at 5 in the morning, and he would see Sam Walton drive by on his way to work. And Doug rose from seeing Sam Walton drive by as he delivered papers at 5 in the morning to be CEO. Doug's first job with Walmart was unloading trucks. And again, we have a sort of a saying at Walmart, it's my Walmart, the moment where you feel pride. And I always say, what does that mean? It means, am I pleased to tell my kids what I do for a living every day and why I think my company matters? When I say it's my Walmart, I think about the fact that Doug McMillan started out on a freight dock unloading trucks and rose to CEO, and I contend that's a fairly unusual moment in corporate America right now. The things we're thinking about right now, connecting with the customer is critical, positioning the company for tomorrow in this really complex environment we live in. I think the presentation before me is a reminder of really how complex the different metrics are as you look at what is happening. We're trying to drive sales, be a company that operates with excellence and integrity. And I think in our business, the core thing is trust with our associates and trust with the customers. We spend a huge amount of time talking to our core customer. We call her Mom. Mom probably makes $35,000 a year. She has 1 or 2 children. She may have 1 or 2 jobs. She has a stressful, busy life. She probably spends about 19 minutes grocery shopping, and she has shopped us once in the last 30 days. That's Mom. That's Walmart's core customer. And when we talk about this issue with Mom, she believes that made in the USA is second only to price in how she will make her decision. So when you talk to real Americans and real customers about what is happening out there, this is the number 2 issue. It matters tremendously to core customers. 85% of moms feel it's very important that we're selling products made in the USA. Walk through our stores and just start to pay attention one day. More and more suppliers are doing more and more visible labels to say it's made in the USA. And Mom believes that products made in the USA are generally of higher quality. So clearly Americans are coming back to a place where this issue matters a great deal, and when we do issues like this in research, they tell us that very clearly. Let me just tick through, I think, why the numbers matter. So we want to buy $50 billion in new products in the 10th year of this decade. We'll buy $250 billion over the course of the decade. We think that can equate to 250,000 manufacturing jobs. And again, as you heard in the presentation before me, 1 manufacturing jobs traditionally by economists has been thought to create 3 service-related jobs. So just coming back to the bicycle for a moment. If you make the frame and he makes the pedals and he makes the handlebars, your bicycle factory is kicking off support jobs in the companies that you are buying from. The core objectives are fairly simple right now. We're trying to grow business with existing suppliers. We're trying to attract new suppliers, and we're trying to shift existing items back into production in the U.S. But growing business with existing suppliers is as critical as, perhaps more critical, as we heard in the presentation before, as bringing manufacturing facilities back into the United States. We are also doing something right now that I think makes a lot of sense. We've put together this U.S. Manufacturing Innovation Fund. Basically, we're saying, how do we go out and find the best thought leaders, the best research leaders, and the best academic institutions who are looking at issues like this? We took $10 million in foundation money, and we're going out there in a joint venture with the United States Conference of Mayors to find research and academic leaders who are looking at things like how to make it easier for manufacturing to assemble a motor, plastic mold, fuel injection issues, how could textile possibly be brought back in. So we're funding research, or starting to fund research in some of the real challenges that are facing manufacturing. And the end goal is grants to applied research projects that advance solutions to some of the complex challenges. And again, how do we get started on this in terms of category? We have hundreds of categories of items across the store. Where do we integrate with the supplier? Where do we integrate with the location? The products that tend to be most likely to convert to U.S. manufacturing in the short term, we think, are where transportation is a high percentage of cost. Containers on the ocean, as we just heard, are inventory, so shorter supply chain, shorter transportation cycles are going to sort of benefit everybody in the equation. Where labor is a low percentage of cost, where energy is a high percentage, and products where being close to customer creates flexibility to keep the product on the shelves. An example, patio and lawn furniture is basically all made in China. It's also a long lead time item. And it's also an item that is not really brand focused. If you walk into a Sam's Club and see a cool patio set, you don't tend to think, oh, that's this brand name. You think, that's a cool looking patio set and I like the price. So you're not making that decision on brand. But in terms of color, of the pillows and the attachments. In terms of color and design, you care a lot that it is a fit with you. But it's actually because it's made in China and it's a rather large item, the lead time to design, manufacture, get it through the supply chain, and get it back home can be 2 years. So for us to, again, hit the patio set that on a Saturday morning appeals to you and your spouse at Sam's, we have to sort of, if we can shrink the lead time, we can be better positioned to sell you patio furniture that resonates with you as you walk through the store. Why is this all good business? Pretty simple. It creates more jobs for Americans, and that matters a tremendous amount right now. Communities care about local jobs and American renewal. You know, I was driving up here last night. The sun was setting. It was a pretty night, and you know, I'm driving through small town, past small town after small town, and I was thinking about the fact that one thing about Walmart, because we started in Bentonville, Arkansas, we understand Conway, Arkansas. I think we understand Topeka. We understand the small towns in Missouri and Kansas and Arkansas that are the core DNA of where this company came from. So we also understand why 75 new jobs matters hugely to those communities, and that's why this project matters. And clearly, I think we all understand, whether you're an economic development leader or whether you're a governor, that rebuilding the middle class will take everyone in both the public and the private sector. This is a fairly complex slide, which I generally stay away from, but the purpose of the slide is to show you that the gap in price advantage in products coming back in from China is shrinking monthly. So labor, components, all of the pieces of manufacturing are getting more equal, and the price advantage for goods coming back in from China shrinks. I was with someone this week who was one of the key Walmart people in China. He made an interesting point, that there was a point in China where the available workforce was like 125 million people. And that number is coming down closer to 65 million. And two things are happening. After years of the government demanding that families only have one child, your available workforce is coming down, and their minimum wage is going up. So Asia is not the sort of economic place it once was, and this is why Kansas and Louisiana and Arkansas are positioning to capture some of the jobs that are going to come back, because the government there said one child, the workforce shrunk, minimum wage increased, and frankly, that is a very complex market for anyone to operate in. I think it is more complex there and a little bit more of the Wild West than Americans understand. How do we get started in terms of our relationship with suppliers? Transparency and collaboration. Again, many of the points, I'm struck, having listened to the previous presentation, how we're aligned on a lot of this. We are aware that for the average business, there are challenges to accomplishing this, to bringing jobs home and increasing business in the U.S. Lack of information, a limited upstream supply chain, shortage of labor is certainly an issue, and I think an issue when you have a fairly low unemployment rate as you do in Kansas, an issue at the slides we just looked at, you know, what is high school graduation rate, what is college graduation rate, what is the availability of high-tech workers. If Wichita has empty facilities that used to be aviation facilities, and they want to talk to a manufacturer that has been in China and is looking to come back, that availability of skilled labor is something that I think all states are looking at. Limited access to financing is certainly an issue, going through a complex process, the regulatory burdens that suppliers everywhere, and the tax issues. So I don't think anybody is saying that it's easy. I think clearly what we're talking about today, these are immensely complex issues for a supplier that wants to consider this, and also, does the supplier even want to endeavor to go down this road? In terms of location, in terms of how we get started, I think that's the sweet spot where Walmart is right now. We're trying to link manufacturers with states and communities and regions that are set up to bring some of these jobs home and help us increase what we buy from U.S. Suppliers. And clearly that has to be a partnership with federal, state, and local governments. We did something last year we had never done before. We assembled in Orlando a U.S. manufacturing summit. We pulled together 1,400 people. We had 8 governors. And I will tell you, if you've been around governors, it's extremely unusual, complex, and difficult to get that many governors to one event. I mean, the governors gather for the National Governors Association, but we were proud of the fact that we could do this. 34 states, more than 500 suppliers, and one goal. And it was a chance for us to link states with suppliers and manufacturers who were looking at new ways of doing business and new places to go. Frankly, it was so successful, and we had so many companies sort of enthusiastic about it. We're going to do a similar event this summer in Denver. So at Walmart, we see it's absolutely critical that we function as a middleman to bring the two sides of the equation together. What's next for us? Digging deeper into all the categories across the store to define the areas where we can buy more in that category in the United States and where we can bring more manufacturers back from overseas. Partnering with the suppliers to address the key barriers. I think one thing about our size and scope, we are large enough to make a difference, and that partnership we think we can help lead. And then convening the right government organizations to make reshoring a little bit easier. I think there are moments that this company that started in that what is now a used plumbing supply store in Rogers, Arkansas, we're big enough to make a difference when the moment is right and the issue is right. And I think right now the moment is right and this issue is right. I was involved 8 years ago when Walmart rolled out our $4 generic drugs. We went on the open market. We said, here are 350 generic drugs that we will sell for $4. And people said, okay, but what if I'm on this plan? And we said, $4. What if I don't have coverage? $4. And they would ask, we said, for $1 bills, we'll sell you these 350 generic drugs. We rolled the program out at a beautiful new supercenter in Tampa, Florida. And as the event was about to start, I was standing with a retired police officer from Lawrence, Massachusetts, who had moved to Tampa to get away from the snow. And he looked around, he said, boy, you have a lot of Walmart people here today. I said, yes, sir, we do, but I got to be honest with you. Of anything happening in this global company today, this announcement matters more than anything else. And he looked at the assembled event about to start, and he said, well, maybe I won't have to cut my pills in half anymore. That moment was where Walmart, I think, stepped into the issue and made a difference in the early years of America starting to talk about healthcare reform. I think jobs in manufacturing were stepping in and attempting to make a difference. Obviously, you all are on the front line. It won't happen without you. It won't happen without governors like this who care deeply about their states. So thank you for having us here today. It means a great deal. I got a pocket full of business cards, and I'll be around afterwards. That's my Twitter handle, retail link, if you're looking for more information about what we are doing. And this is an email address where if you know a company who feels that they would like to sort of get involved with this, that's not a form email. We have people looking at those incoming questions every day and trying to link potential suppliers or existing suppliers with what is happening here. So I close by just again, thank you, Governor, for having Walmart, and thank you all for what you're doing on the front line to make a difference.